It's kind of high up here. It's great to see you, Scott.
Good to
Welcome
see you.
again
Thank
to
you. Thank you.
Zionsville United Methodist Church. We're awfully glad that you took time to share a few minutes with us today in worship. So great. I think a lot of us know you're the superintendent of schools for the Zionsville School District, which we have a lot of different school districts represented here, but I would say most of them are the one that you have the executive decisions over. Tell us something about yourself, though, Scott. Like, just forget that for a minute. Tell us something about you.
Well, I grew up in New Albany, down in southern Indiana, because someone had to. I'm just kidding. It was really a wonderful place to grow up. And so I grew up there with my three brothers and mom and dad, and I was lucky enough to start teaching there, but got laid off from teaching and ended up in the Indianapolis area, and fast forward several positions with IU, Purdue, several other school districts, and now I'm in Zionsville in my 12th year.
That's amazing. 12 years. Most people die after 4 or 5 in your job.
The average tenure is about 2.3 years, I believe, in suburban districts, so
yeah,
it is kind of a long run.
That's about the tenure of a Methodist preacher, too.
There you go.
Yeah, it's about the same thing. So you did you grow up with a faith background or a church background, and if you did, I mean, what foundations were laid that you now, later in your life, have found to be dependable and helpful to you?
Well, we did. We were fortunate in that day and age. The church was the sort of the third leg of the three-legged stool of home, school, and church. And we were not in abject poverty, but you could see it from there.
Yeah.
And so the folks I met in church and the things I learned in church were very foundational to me. And I'd say that is the undergirding of who I am now as an adult professional and a family person. So grew up in a little, it was actually called the Advent Christian Church.
Okay.
And a little denomination in the Midwest, I guess. And so that was very important. My mom and dad sang in the choir, and when we acted up, usually on about the third pew, Dad did come and get me once. I told that story when I was here a few years ago. He came and got me as though, pastor was speaking, he comes from the choir loft, he grabs me in one motion, I'm about 7 or 8.
Okay.
And it all went like that, and I'm outside the church door, and traffic going by, and he says not a word, but has his hand on my shoulder over here, and whacks my tiny little behind, said not a word, grabbed me, put me back in the pew. I was good from there on. That was a church memory. Sorry, young children, I didn't mean to scare you.
Well, first of all, I want to say that you're a quick learner because my mom did that to me at least 8 or 10 times. But we used to have to sit on the front row.
Oh, my.
And so everybody knew what was happening. And so I'm a little, my tools are not as sharp up here as yours are. So now, in the Zionsville school system, you guys are having an emphasis, which really is not particular to this school system in the sense that the theory of it or the understanding of it is something that's applicable everywhere. But tell us a little bit about strong in every way.
Well, you know, we know that no one is strong in every way, so it's aspirational in that regard. We're attempting to provide the tools and experiences in partnership with parents that allow our students to transcend just having great test scores, which we're lucky enough to have because we have hardworking kids and parents who have been first teachers. But it's interesting that parenting in America has become sort of an individualized sport that families are sort of self-contained, and that old thing, except for these folks. In fact, you know, if you've read anything by Putnam from Harvard, Bowling Alone was one of his great works, that we're less affiliated as a society than we used to be. And it's funny that I say that in the, you know, right here in the middle of social media, but really that whole thing about, you know, Mrs. Potts, my Sunday school teacher, using my older brother Steve to get me in line when I needed to learn the 23rd Psalm, that thing is less prevalent in our society today. And so this effort to ensure that all of us who are productive adult citizens can be anchors for children. And so it does transcend our family a little bit. You know, when Ben has friends over, Ben is our caboose guy who's an 8th grader and older daughters who are grown and gone. But when Ben has friends over, we play together as parents and we're in touch with other parents. And I know that happens a lot in Zionsville, but the extent to which we can maximize that is only better for our kids. And that is particularly true here in the age of social media and other factors that can distract children. So Strong in Every Way is based on that. The first notion is webs of support. And really, adults are the webs of support that we need to cultivate more in Zionsville.
Yeah, you had a guest in just a week or two ago, and he was talking about, if I can try to paraphrase what he was saying, that his research tells him that in the world, it's not always about is it urban, suburban, is it black, white, is it rich, poor. It's do kids have webs of support or do they not have webs of support?
Correct.
And he said at the minimum every kid needs 5 strong adults around them.
Right.
And it made me wonder if kids have 5 strong adults in their life.
That's true, and particularly in grades 7 through 12, this research shows that the young people need to choose who those anchors are. That's what those adults are who constitute that web. And so if the young people can identify 5 or more, some kids have 20, and many kids in this community are quite blessed to have more than just 5 anchor adults that they identify. And so we're looking to make sure that those anchor adults, whether it's a teacher, a coach, a bus driver, and some of those folks are anchors for our kids, that our kids would choose, that those people understand what it means when a child comes to them, an adolescent or young adult comes and says, you know, Dr. Robison, I'd like for you to be one of my 5. And luckily, through that event last week, that happened a couple of times. That was very gratifying for me and humbling to know that somebody wants something in me that they see to be part of them, and that's what an anchor does.
So a lot of us are sitting here, a lot of people here have kids in school, many people do not. How do we help strengthen the fiber of this community by helping our kids in our schools? Like
I'm so glad you asked. It's almost as though we planted that.
It's almost.
What would be great is if you'd go to the Zionsville Community Schools website and you'd look at the Strong in Every Way tab. Under that, it talks about being attentive to these things in the community. Even if you don't have children in our schools anymore, there are many ways that you can be involved, and the best one first is to be informed about what this means, about what some of these terms are that are really important in the lives of young people. You know, since the days of Plato, older generations have been casting aspersions on younger generations. That happens to us as we get older. I can tell you as a person who's getting to be an old guy who has worked for 40 years in this business, the future is in really good hands. We are blessed, many of them sitting here, with young people who are going to handle this world very, very well. And I encourage all of us to be cordial to them, to be assistive to them in any way we can, and turn the tide on this notion that you can't say something to someone else's child, particularly if it's positive. That is affirming when you see them as you're getting your coffee over on Brick Street. Get to know them, introduce yourself to them. They will think it's weird at first, but it is part of that adhesive that holds a community together. So thank you for thinking about it.
You know, in some ways, when we think about this, for me, we're sort of talking about what the church has always been and done. Even here, you know, and maybe many people here don't know this, but in our youth ministry here, we have these amazing adults who will become what we call life group leaders, and they'll shepherd a group of kids through middle school, high school.
Absolutely.
And many of these relationships are spectacular, and even years after they're gone from here, they're very close. So, you know, all of us need webs of support, even you and I, but especially the kids. So hopefully we can just continue what we're doing in a great way. But I would encourage you, whoever you are, I have certainly thought more about that. How do I just stop some kid on the street and it'll freak him out or her, and just, you know, who are the kids that perhaps I could adopt or they would want to adopt me, and I can just kind of, they can always know that I'm there. you know.
Fortunately, the church is one great avenue for that because adults who are really good candidates for anchors are all around. And I think kids who grow up in church, thank you, really know that. You know, I'm a public school superintendent and I don't get to say a lot about church when I'm at work. But I just need to let you know that about 2.5 months ago, knowing that Derek Peterson, this expert who's going to be here on August 3rd, was coming, I sent a personalized note to all clergy in the area. And I will say that when Derek came, I saw one clergy person there who is a piece of the stickiness in this community to hold it together, and that was Glenn Howell. So I want to thank him for being there and for responding. Thank you. And he is in the know, and I so appreciate that if we get this opportunity to spread what you're doing in the activities that you as parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles who care about young people, you are really suitable anchors, and look where you are today. That is hugely important in spreading. It's said that it takes a village to raise a child. That's not really true, but every child does need a village, and it starts with at least 5 quality anchors.
Scott, we're glad you're here. Thanks for 12 great years.
Thank you.
And we look forward to more.
Thank you so much.